I don't know who this is going to surprise, but I've never once read out of a John Darby Bible. I wouldn't even know there was a Darby Bible if I hadn't seen it as a translation option on Bible Gateway. I say this for all the people who tell me I only believe in the rapture because some John Darby guy made it up in the 1800s or whatever, and I wouldn't even know there was a John Darby guy if people weren't saying that I believe what he believes, what he made up supposedly. You know what I'm saying? But no, the idea of being raptured goes way further back than that. I would argue that it goes back at least as early as 2 Kings 2:11, where Elijah himself was quite literally raptured. The day I found out that people have already been raptured before, not as one grand scale event, but that people have been raptured before, recorded in the Bible, so we know it's true, blew my mind, because I was already like big into the rapture and all that. And once I found that, I'm like, wow, okay, so we're not that crazy. It's not that ridiculous to believe in a rapture because, well, it's already happened. There already has been people raptured before, which is so awesome when you keep learning more about the Bible and keep finding it, proving and verifying what you already believe about the rapture. You know, I'll say that I don't believe in the rapture because other people do. I believe the rapture because to me, that's what it sounds like while studying the Bible. I believe the rapture because it's inconsistent with God's character, in God's pattern, to beat his children and not offer them an escape. Which, if you believe in a post, kind of sounds to me that's what you believe, that God's going to torture us, that we have to earn our salvation. Listen, if God had some other escape outside of the rapture, surely he would have told us. That's his pattern. That's like believing Noah could have gotten on the ark without God even telling him to make one. God told him what to do ahead of time. He told Noah to build an ark, and now he's just simply telling us to have our lamps filled with oil. That's our ark, being ready, being saved on Team Jesus, really. I don't personally think it's a requirement to be raptured, right? I don't know. Maybe people would disagree with that. I think, if you're saved, you're going up. Of course, an ark wouldn't protect us this time. What could possibly protect us from the entire earth being destroyed? Yes, I believe it says in there in Revelation that some will survive it. But even those few survivors in no way will even want to be here. In no way is that a picnic for them. Some picnic. It'll be hell on earth. I think there'll literally be demons walking the streets. You don't want to be here for that. You really want to hang out with demons that you can see with your own eyes? I think that's going to be the strong delusion that they're going to appear as aliens. That's at least what it came off as in one of my rapture dreams. I'll say that. To want to be here for the tribulation means you have absolutely no idea what's coming. Hold on. I just got to say this. I believe it's possible that people can have very hyper-realistic dreams or nightmares where it's so real because it is real. And what I mean by that is one time I was so deep into giving into sexual sin years ago, maybe 5 or so years ago, I don't remember. But this one time I was asleep in my bed and I was having a nightmare that felt so real that it terrified me and woke me up as it was happening. A literal demon in my nightmare that looked like this black, shadowy, very sharp-edged, tall, skinny, nightmare-inducing thing. It literally came into my bed and was grabbing me just really inappropriately, and I didn't know what exactly to make of that, I think, when I first had it, but I, at some point years later, heard that, like, that can happen, if like that's possible. And it, like, from what I understand, it felt real because it was real, which is insane. And so I guess I know what a demon looks like, at least vaguely, based on what I saw there. And it was kind of similar, at least. It was similar to, that one Rapture dream I was just talking about, where I had seen these two tall, gray, skinny, alien looking figures walking around the streets during the tribulation. It must have been either that, or I don't know, maybe it could have been shortly before the tribulation started. I don't know for sure at what point exactly, but the world was in complete chaos when that was happening. And so I believe that has to most likely be the strong delusion, because when people see aliens, they're going to believe in aliens, but they're going to be demons. But anyways, to want to be here for the tribulation means you have absolutely no idea what's coming. That's like saying, it's like saying you want to be here for the flood without the ark. You're signing yourself up to drown. If you want to be here for the tribulation, you're asking to be killed. That's literally what you're doing. I don't know if I can say that. And just now, going back to 2 Kings 2, I just realized how it starts out with two of them. I don't think that's a coincidence, how the Bible specifies that there were two people there, Elijah and Elisha. And we have rapture talk elsewhere in the Bible that specifically talks about several situations, famously where two are together and one is left. One goes up and one's left, which is exactly what happened here with Elijah. And we know that Elijah was raptured by definition. So, yeah, I think I've heard people say that, like, oh, the verse is about one at the mill, one left. Oh, that's not talking about the rapture, that's something else. It's like, I don't think so. You can believe otherwise if you want, but I believe it's clear that it's about the rapture. There can only be so many coincidences in the Bible before you realize that none of these things are really coincidences at all, right? Right? Let's look at a section of Matthew 24. The first thing I want to talk about, in verse 36, it says, "You don't know the day or hour," which is what half of the planet has ever so kindly said to me, leaving comments and all that about that we can't have any possible idea when the rapture is. But what does the Bible actually say? Is it talking about the rapture? No. That verse is talking about the day or hour that heaven and earth will pass away, which I believe is clear if you literally just read the verse just before that one that says you can't know the day or hour. So to me, it comes off as anyone saying we can't know the day or hour regarding the rapture, that they didn't even read it in the Bible. Otherwise, they would have seen that it says that it's talking about heaven and earth passing away, right? Now, with that being said, I'll be honest, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that works. Like, won't people be able to figure out the day that heaven and earth will pass away if it's exactly 7 years after the rapture and start of the tribulation? Could it perhaps mean the overall existence of the earth until the end? Will anyone know the day? But not necessarily that they won't be able to figure it out, since they'll see when the tribulation starts. Hopefully that makes sense what I'm trying to say. But, yeah. I mean, God might not do it the exact day after the tribulation ends. Maybe. I don't know why he would wait. And we don't actually know if there is or how long the gap of time between the rapture and the start of the tribulation is. I believe there's barely a gap, maybe a week. I don't know. It's hard to say for sure. But going by 1 Thessalonians 5:3, I believe the rapture is the sudden destruction, because the world will go into complete chaos the instant the restrainer is removed. But regardless, the day or hour does not seem to be referring to the timing of the rapture, from what I'm seeing anyways. You may disagree, and that's okay. It's not a salvation issue. But yeah, if it's not about the rapture, that's kind of blowing my mind, the better I understand it. It's actually kind of shocking and embarrassing, if I'm being honest, just how many people go around throwing that day or hour verse in our faces, when it's actually, I think now, clear to me, just by reading that verse above it, that it's probably not even talking about the rapture. It's what it says. It says you don't know the day of heaven and earth passing away, which isn't when the rapture is. I love when stuff like this happens. When what I already believe just suddenly makes way more sense. Because I've been struggling to understand what exactly to do with the day or hour verse in context to what many think it means when they're claiming it's pertaining to the rapture. And I'll say, even with that, I'm not saying we for sure are guaranteed to know the exact day of the rapture. But we're 100%, I genuinely believe, we're definitely to know that this truly is the generation, that it is our generation. We are the last generation of the end. And it's okay if you disagree. I'm just telling you what I believe. I'm telling you what keeps getting even clearer for me. The more I study about the rapture, the more sense it makes to me what I already believed, not less. And, I know it's easy for people to, already have this idea in their head, so everything they read, they're going to fit it into that context, and it might not be accurate. And that's a genuine thing to think about. But, I don't think God would let me get this far off and tell everyone what I believe about it if I was genuinely doing something wrong, right? Does that make sense? I don't know. Something to think about. But people using the day or hour out of context is absolutely no different from people using thief in the night completely out of context as well. Maybe not completely out of context, but it is still out of context. You know what I'm saying? If you are someone who believes that we all get taken in the rapture as a thief in the night, as in it's a complete surprise when it happens, why do you believe that? And did you actually read and study that for yourself? Or do you just believe it because you heard it from someone at some point? Maybe growing up in church or something like that. People always tell me to stop watching the Left Behind movies because I'm basing my beliefs on that instead of the Bible. And I'm just realizing that what I believe actually kind of completely contradicts the Left Behind movies when you actually think about it, which I'm now finding so incredibly hilarious and ironic now. By your own logic, I am believing whatever I saw in Left Behind. But I don't believe what happened in Left Behind is biblical. I just think it's an entertaining movie. And that there obviously is certain biblical elements to it, but I'm just realizing how, they never even claim to know when it's going to happen in those movies. I'm saying you can have at least an idea of how close you are, but, maybe I have to go back and rewatch them. Maybe they are oh, it's going to happen, I don't think so. From what I remember, they're oh, it's going to be completely random. You'll never know when it is, which is the opposite of what I believe. So it's hilarious when people say to stop basing my beliefs on Left Behind because I don't agree with Left Behind. Which, isn't that kind of wild? I didn't realize that. I wasn't thinking about it like that, but that's hilarious, right? But yeah, all this time people keep telling me to stop because I'm just believing the movies/books version of the Rapture, which, I've never read the Left Behind books. I've barely read any books. But I actually believe very differently than what the movies depict. I've always loved those movies, but I'm not basing my theology around them. I couldn't even tell you the last time I actually saw one of the original Left Behind movies. I don't know, at least a few years ago probably. I did rewatch the Nick Cage one, maybe, was it last year? Maybe this year, I don't know. But, Yeah, I don't believe that day will be completely random at all, as long as you are looking. So that day doesn't take you as a thief. Notice in verse 43 here. It says, if you knew it was going to happen, you would be watching, so you wouldn't be surprised. And some of you keep telling us to stop watching. But it says to be watching in the Bible. But people don't read their Bibles or something. I don't know. I know there's a lot of Bible there to study, but like, don't tell me I'm wrong about something that you clearly, or at least may not have studied. I gotta be careful what I say. I'm just excited about this, okay? Right? I talk a lot about how the Bible says the last days will be just as in the days of Noah, as seen in chapter 37, or yeah, here in 37. But the book of Luke in chapter 17, which I just read the other night, goes even further with it. In Luke 17, 26 and 27, it goes into the end being just like Noah's time. It says, as it was in the days of Noah, that's Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. And following that, I don't believe Matthew goes into it. Or wait, hold on, I'm getting things confused. I had everything written down, so I'm trying to figure out what I was saying. But I said, unlike Matthew in 28 and 30, it instead of just saying in the days of Noah, it says there about in the days of Noah, but it also goes in to say as in the days of Lot, which is fun because, I love to compare the end times, Rapture, to Noah, as we're told to in the Bible. But I don't always, or at least as much, think about Lot. I haven't studied that as much as Noah, right? But, that's kind of the same thing. It's a pattern. God has these patterns. He's consistent. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So here in 28 through 30 it says, likewise also as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. Both of these huge destructive events were very specifically told to us, as the world having been completely normal until the moment that destruction came and destroyed them. This alone can let us know, that's why it's in there, that it has to be, I believe, a pre-tribulation rapture, because nothing about the world will be normal when sudden destruction comes, aka the rapture. As told when they're saying peace and safety, sudden destruction comes. The world cannot be normal when sudden destruction is on the whole earth, right? So that's how we know it has to happen first, before the sudden destruction. Now, I haven't looked enough into Sodom and Gomorrah, but I'm just realizing it's like, oh, wait, the whole earth wasn't destroyed, right? Unlike Noah's time. Yeah, I need to really study that, I need to read that, but I think that's why they also didn't need to be removed from the earth, aka raptured, or have any sort of ark, so to speak. And that's why fire and brimstone did not touch those here on earth at that time who obeyed God's instructions and left, because it wasn't the whole world being destroyed. And I could be wrong because I really haven't looked much into this. I haven't really studied it. But there were still places they could safely go, unlike during the tribulation where it'll be on the whole earth. And Matthew 24:19 seems like it may be saying, I'm not sure. I could be wrong. I think it's possible that it's indicating that there will be babies in the tribulation. At the very least, there'll be nursing mothers, so there has to be babies for that, right? So yeah, which is kind of wild because I think I think won't children be raptured? At least those under the age of accountability. Wouldn't obviously that include babies, but maybe those babies born after the tribulation starts, well, they'll be here, right? I think that must be what it means. So it's saying it will be a very terrible time even for nursing mothers in the tribulation. So that seems clear to me that literally anyone here on the earth, it will be bad for. No one will be okay during the tribulation. Anyone here for those 7 years, I don't think can be okay. Not even nursing mothers will be protected, because the tribulation isn't God's grace, it's God's wrath, right? Now, I'm capable of misunderstanding things, and I've been making sure lately in my videos to make that clear that I could be wrong about things, I'm just trying, we're all trying here, guys. Let's not argue. We're all on the same team, right? The main point is love. And if you're yelling at me for disagreeing, that's not love. And I don't know. Just, yeah. I can't remember what verse it was, but I had found a verse the other day that essentially seemed to be saying that the whole earth will be suffering, as in anyone left here during the tribulation. We know that it says that people will hide in the caves from God's wrath, but it will not protect them. No one will be safe anywhere, not even in caves. I believe that's why it says that no one can survive, no one can be safe here on earth, no matter who you are, no matter where you are on earth. Nothing will protect you from the wrath, at least from what I understand. Let's read Matthew 24, starting at, I think this is Matthew. Yeah, Matthew 24, 32 through 44, and this is KJV. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender, and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. And I just caught that as I read that just now. Isn't that awesome? It says, so likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. And that's, I believe, the same thing that we're told when it says that when all these things happen, look up, for your redemption draws near, because we're going to be the ones here for it when all these things are taking place. That this generation won't pass away before the Son of Man returns, right? Comes back and okay. But yeah, like I just caught that just now. I don't think I caught that before, where it says, it's saying the same thing. It's like, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near. And I probably have noticed that before, but I don't have the best memory. Anyways, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. And as I was just going into about how I think it's possible, at the very least, that not knowing the day or hour is regarding when heaven and earth shall pass away, but just the Father. Although I will have to say, make a note that it is very clear that, well, it does specify that only the Father knows, and we know Jewish wedding language, only the Father knew when the wedding would be. Forgive me for not knowing for sure, but I just had this thought. Is the rapture when the wedding will be? Or is it after the tribulation, when we have the wedding? Well, hold on. The marriage supper of the Lamb. So hold on. I'm trying to wrap my head around this stuff. There's so many gears going on in my head. The marriage supper is once we go to heaven, right? I know it says we return wearing, doesn't it say we come back with him on horses wearing robes of fine linen? I believe, from what I understand, we're wearing the same material as wedding dresses that our robes will be made out of. So we'll be married. I don't know. There's so many things to get into, but I have so much more to say. So, anyways, it says, but of that day and hour knoweth no man, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also this coming of the Son of Man be. And we have to ask, the coming of the Son of Man, is that talking about the second coming, where he comes to earth, or just him coming to the clouds and we meet him there? Or how does that work? And I probably look ridiculous for asking these things, but I think that's, I don't know, humility or humbleness or honesty and not pretending like I know everything, because that's where so much danger comes when we all think that, or at least act and pretend like, oh, yeah, I know what that means. I know everything about it. It's like we're always learning. No one knows the Bible 100%, even if they lived, for 1,000 years. I think they would still be learning stuff because the Bible, it's unlike any other book. It's a living word. It's alive. It's literally alive. Like, it's the only book that reads you. You know what I'm saying? I heard that the other day and I thought that was so profound. Anyways, for as in the days of Noah, that were before the flood. So, comparing it to Noah, this is as in the days before the tribulation that's coming, right? As in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then, and this is what I was talking about before, about there being verses about one left and one taken. So, then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left. 2 women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken and the other left. And from what I understand, those are just them working. Like, those are things that they would do back then. They would work at a mill, grinding, whatever they did back then, people working in the field. So it's like they're just living their lives like normal, and then just one's gone and one's still there, So then it says, watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. Which, is interesting, because it's like, well, shoot, maybe we can't know the day or hour. Because here it says that we can't. It doesn't mention day here, but it does mention the hour. It says, which is an interesting connection there, right? So you don't know what hour. Now, again, we have to ask, is that even talking about the rapture? I just thought about that. Do we not know what hour your Lord comes? But is that specifying, is that talking about when he comes back to earth, the second coming? Because the rapture isn't when he returns. So that's probably not about the rapture when it says that we don't know the hour. So again, I think that kind of confirms what I was saying before about, I think that's connected to the day or hour just meaning when heaven and earth passes away. And this here is saying that we don't know the hour when the Lord comes back, which isn't the rapture. It's 7 years after the rapture, right? So this is all kind of coming together in my head. This is awesome. But so we know that I think we can put those two together and say that, like, the Lord's return and heaven and earth passing away are maybe the same hour, maybe the same moment. I think that would make sense. Maybe that's why it specifies an hour, because it's like us coming back to earth and heaven and earth being made new. Maybe that takes place within the same period of 60 minutes. Maybe that's ridiculous. I don't know. Sorry, my phone ran out of storage, so I deleted some stuff. So I'll keep going. Watch ye therefore. Oh, I just got really late at it. Okay. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this. So it says you don't know what hour your Lord comes. But know this, that if the good men of the house had known in what watch, as in what time, right? In what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. And again, here in Luke, we hear about two being together and one taken and the other left, just as it was for Elijah and Elisha here in Luke 17. In that day, he which shall be upon the housetop and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. So, yeah. I don't know. That made me think of one being in the field and one left. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that part. I don't know. Hold on. Okay. So continuing, it says, remember Lot's wife. That's all it says in that verse. Remember Lot's wife. And I haven't studied that properly. I don't know enough about it. Sodom and Gomorrah. So I can't say too much about it. But I know that things did not go well for her because she looked back. And we're never supposed to look back. So never, I don't know, hopefully I'm not saying this wrong, but like, makes me think like, don't go back to your old life apart from God, right? Maybe that's not at all how to look at that. Sorry. Gotta be careful what I say on here. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. I tell you, in that night there shall be two men in one bed, the one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. Now, because we live in 2025, and everyone kind of, not you guys necessarily, no, but the world would hear that verse and they'll be like, oh, look, God's like, yeah, there's two men in one bed. And I can't tell you how exactly why it was like that. I didn't live in that time, but it has nothing to do with homosexuals. I'll say that. But yeah, the one shall be taken and the other shall be left. Two women shall be grinding together, the one shall be taken and the other left. Two men shall be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left. And they answered and said unto him, Where, Lord? And he said unto them, Wheresoever the body is, thither will the eagles be gathered together. That last verse really stood out to me when I read it, because it's so perfect. Because did you know, I just learned this the other day, that eagles fly higher than any other bird. And we're about to be taken up higher than anyone else when we meet the Lord in the air. And it even specifically says the eagles will be gathered together. And that's quite literally what God is doing when taking us, harpazoing us up in the air. He's literally gathering us together. And it's even saying, wheresoever the body is, we, the bride of Christ, those who belong to him, we are the body, and he is the head. Someone in a video a couple days ago I saw was talking about how God's the head and we're the body, and naturally when someone turns their head, often their body automatically turns with it. And there's so many different observations like that are really cool to think about, because like there's just so many ways that you can connect how we are to be, how we're the body and God's the head, and how our head and bodies kind of, you know, they're up the same. They're, yeah, I don't know how to, okay, you know what I'm saying. But with me going into all that about that verse, I will say this. So after reading that, I looked into it and I found that some translations actually say vultures instead of eagles, which is very different, I feel, than what I'm thinking if the Bible was actually talking about vultures. But at least from what I understand, apparently, supposedly the KJV is supposed to be, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not 100% perfect, but it's probably the most accurate as we can get. So it probably meant eagles, but I don't know. Because I will say it does got me thinking now, because some translations even, I guess, use the word carcass instead of body, which again changes the context, at least from what it sounded like to me, completely. Because like a vulture and a carcass, is a very different thing than what I was thinking. Yeah. And I may be understanding that verse, so please, don't assume that I'm right what I was saying earlier about it. I'm just saying, that's just what it made me think when reading it. And hopefully this all makes sense to you guys. It can be a little hard to put all my thoughts together in one big cohesive video. I mean, I'm probably going to separate this in several videos because it's so long. But yeah, it's so incredibly clear to me that it is a pre-tribulation rapture, or at the very least there will be a pre-tribulation rapture, which may be kind of wild to hear, because you might be thinking, what in the world does that mean? And what I mean by that is something someone was saying in a video I saw a couple days ago. He's this awesome channel. Not a huge channel, got maybe 7,000 subscribers, but he's called Barley Harvest, and I was watching a video talking about sheep and goat hybrids, geep, which I didn't know was a thing, so that was really interesting, all that he went into with that. But something he said in that video made me consider the possibility that just maybe that God will also rapture some up at the halfway point of the tribulation, because I always believed that there will only be one major rapture event. And, I only know so much, guys. I haven't experienced the rapture for myself yet, But, and who knows, maybe only some, a small amount will be raptured in the halfway point instead of it being like this huge event again, like the beginning. I don't know. Either way, I know that it can't be possible for a post-trib rapture simply because there's nowhere to be raptured to unless I'm missing something. And I try to be humble and accept the fact that I can't know every single detail for 100% sure. And I'm out of storage space again, so I'm going to come back and delete after deleting stuff. In the words of Dr. Beria, and we're back! Mr. Bones? Okay. If you know, you know. Okay, anyways. When we all believe we can't have possibly anything at all wrong about God or the Bible, I think that's prideful and foolish, isn't it? Right? Far too many of us are way too stubborn and unwilling to unlearn, believing we know it all and believe that we know everything better than anyone else, right? I'm not saying change your views on the rapture simply because of what I believe. I'm saying don't believe something simply because it's what you've always believed. Humble yourself before the Lord, the Bible says. Listen, I don't believe this because it's what I've always believed. No. I mean, this literally isn't even what I've always believed, come to think of it. I mean, again, ironically, I did just used to think that it would be the rapture would be a lot more similar to the Left Behind movies than it actually will be. I used to think it was a lot like that. where, I used to believe what the movies went by, that the timing of the rapture would be completely random and that we couldn't have any idea. That's what I grew up believing. It's just where my mindset was. So just know that when I'm on here doing this, I'm actually not doing it because, I just grew up and was taught by a pastor that it's going to be completely random. No. I'm not going by, I saw it in the Left Behind movie, so that's how it is. That's how I believe it's going to be. No. I actually am going against those. Ironically, which a lot of people are probably going to be shocked to hear, because that's what I've been accused of many times. But when I believed that it was going to be completely random, that it was like the Left Behind movies, that was back when I wasn't even truly fully living for God. I certainly wasn't ever in the Bible. It was before I actually went and read and studied this for myself. And it's in no way a salvation issue. So there's no reason to try and, twist my arm for having different views and opinions than yours. It's completely fine if you don't believe the exact same things as the rapture than me. I'm just here to show anyone willing to hear what I have to say, as I say the things that seem way more clear and obvious to me the deeper I study. Again, we're all capable of getting things wrong, but just practically speaking, let's be realistic here and just think about it. Who's honestly more likely, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but who's more likely to have a better understanding of this stuff? Someone who's essentially dedicated their life to this, or someone that's never even actually fully read the book of Revelation, which it's so common for believers to say they completely avoid it. Not that they haven't got around to it, but that they intentionally choose to stay away from it. That's bad. I don't know who needs to hear that, but that's wrong. It's wrong to say, God, I'm not going to read your word, what you gave to me. I'll read these other books you gave me, but this one, I'm not going to read it. It was written for you, especially the very ones, those of us, all of us living in these last days. It's for us to read it. So like someone 1,000 years ago, not reading, not avoiding Revelation, that's one thing, but you're literally living through it and you're still avoiding it. That's kind of messed up, isn't it, when you think about it? Did you know, this is an awesome fact, Revelation is literally the only book of the Bible that literally says you will be blessed by reading it, or something like that. I forget the exact wording, but like, it's that important, it's that special, and I think it's probably even there literally because God knew that so many would avoid it, because it is so hard to understand that you're literally blessed for reading it. That is so cool, guys. You should read it. It's so obvious, I think. At least it often is obvious for those who study. When someone tells us we're wrong by them throwing out of context Bible verses at us for an argument. As an argument. Like, several times I've seen someone tell me that there's no such thing as a rapture, and then I'll go to that person's profile and I'll find out that they're literally an atheist, or that their theology is way off, like so far from God because, there's someone who doesn't even believe Jesus is God, which, the Bible says if you don't believe that Jesus walked here, was here in the flesh, that you have an antichrist spirit. So you're like of the devil, like it's really bad. But yeah, so like I've literally had people say the same things to me as other Christians about me being wrong about the rapture. And it's just blowing my mind, Like some of these people that believe some of these things that other Christians believe about when the rapture is and all that, or that it isn't real or something, are lining up their beliefs with some of these people who don't even believe Jesus is God, or they think maybe he was real, but he was just some prophet or a good guy or something blasphemous like that, which sadly way too many religions do that, which is evil. And you'll go to hell for not believing Jesus is God. Romans 10:9. Now, there have been plenty of with that being said, there have been plenty of fellow genuinely saved brothers and sisters that tell me we can't know the date and that I'm wrong for doing this and all that good stuff. But personally, I don't think it's a coincidence that so many people who don't even believe or follow God agree with other Christians that we're not going to be raptured and all that stuff. Like, so many Christians have their end times beliefs kind of lined up with those same beliefs that some unbelievers even have, which I don't know. I feel like that's kind of concerning, or at least something of note at the very least, something to mention. You don't know how hard it is for me to keep these videos short. But if you knew me, you wouldn't, if you were friends with me, like on Facebook a few years ago, you would have never seen me making posts like this, Like, I remember a period of time where I would go, I think probably weeks or months without literally saying a single word on social media. Like, not sharing anything. And if I did write or say anything, it wouldn't have been more than a sentence or two, and it often wouldn't have had anything to do with God. It would have just been like, oh, I'm excited for this new Marvel movie or something, because I used to be big into Marvel, but at this point I'm so focused on God, a lot of the stuff in the world I just kind of don't care about. Like, I look at all the Marvel stuff coming up that they're coming out with, and I'm just like, I kind of don't care. Like, whatever, it just feels so meaningless. It's so empty anymore, which is a testimony in itself, I would say. That with me, not caring about stuff that I used to be excited about that doesn't have to do with God, and also a testimony of that I would just not talk about anything, let alone God, online, really, for the most part before. Now I'm always talking about him. I can't shut up, every day. So I think, that's also a testimony and proof that God is working through me, proof that God is real. I doubt, there's probably no atheists, unbelievers watching this. You never know, but. And I want to say this, I talk so much, or at least sometimes, about my achievements, or how do I put this? Like, I was just talking about how, hold on, I gotta think what I'm trying to say here. How, I talk all the time about God now. And with saying that, I want to say, please don't misread my confidence for pride. I can't stress enough that this isn't about me. I just want to help people find Jesus and encourage the body of Christ, just as we are encouraged to do in 1 Thessalonians 4:18. So I hope this blessed someone. I'm not sure how many people actually stick through this and watch the whole video. Probably not many, and I can understand that for sure. People are busy, and these are long. But, yeah, even if me doing all these videos, talking about God all the time, even if it were to help even just one person, it's worth it. I would say it goes further than that even just the possibility that it could help just one person makes it worth it. Jesus is almost here. I'm not date setting, I'm date watching, date guessing, which is not a bad thing. But if we truly were looking at the wrong calendar, and with November literally meaning 9, you can look it up. Well, today is now technically 9/23. And a lot of people who got all these 9/23 confirmations, I could be wrong, but I think a lot of them sought the numbers 9/23, not specifically September 23rd. I could be wrong about that, but I think a lot of people specifically saw 9/23. So it may not have even been about September. So there's a chance that it happens today or tomorrow, the 24th. Time will tell. But that's not where my hope is. It's absurd. The idea of someone giving up on God over guessing the date wrong makes no sense. It's just a date. It's just a, hey, this would make sense if it happened this day, so let's watch kind of thing. After September 23rd came and went, I had several people come to me, message me asking if I was doing okay. Like being genuine about it, thinking like, oh, I'm like shattered, like it's so broken that it didn't happen. It's like, I wasn't, from what I remember, this was a couple months back now, but like I think I was completely fine. I was like, oh, okay, wasn't that date. A little confused, but keep watching, You know what I mean? Like, the thing is, I just really love King Jesus and really want to be with him. How are people mad at me for that? I'll never understand. People have walked away from me for being too into the rapture. People who were close to me walked away from me because I love the rapture too much. What? If we were to walk away from each other over not being perfect, whatever imperfection you were going through in your life, none of us would be friends with anyone. We can't do that, guys. And this person was, I would call, a baby Christian. So I have much grace for that. But it did make me very sad because this was a close friend of mine. But that's just how it works, This isn't for everyone, I'm just doing what God called me to do. I can't be disobedient to him. I can't say no when God says to speak. I'm not always perfect in being obedient to him by any means, but I think I've done at least an okay job of talking about my dreams, what he's shown me, the things he's told me, and telling people. And I'm in no way trying to force God to take us sooner. So don't misunderstand what I'm trying to do here. The appointed day was already set by God before the world even began, right? It's literally not possible to change what God has set in stone. And people love to say to stop being worried about the rapture and that Jesus is only coming back once. Well, for one thing, I'm not worried. I'm excited. And I agree, Jesus is only coming back once. That's not a flaw in what I'm saying. It's a flaw in what you understand, because I'm not even saying you're misunderstanding the Bible. I'm saying you're misunderstanding what we're even saying. We're not saying Jesus is coming back twice. That doesn't make sense. I agree with you. He's not coming back twice. It's just such a bizarre thing to me for someone to hear and see the excitement we have. We are so always just eagerly looking for his return, or looking for us to go up to him for that moment. And they see all that and they say, stop being worried. It just shows how, I gotta be careful with what I say, ignorant, how blind you are, that somehow you look at all this and you completely see it as the opposite of what it is. You see it as fear? Like why would we be worried? What part of this comes off as worry? You're telling me not to be worried about my own wedding with Jesus? Why would there even be reason to worry? The only ones that need to be worried are those who don't know him, that live apart from him, that aren't genuinely saved. The ones he will turn away on Judgment Day and said, those of you who practice sin, depart from me. I don't know you. I never knew you. You have everything to worry. The whole point of this is that I'm the exact opposite of worried. I'm excited. I'm celebrating. Also, none of us are saying Jesus is coming back to earth in the rapture. To be raptured is to be taken up to him. So many people somehow don't understand what it even means to be raptured, which drives me a little nuts, to be honest, if you couldn't tell. Take your eyes, little ones, off the world and look to the Lord. If God says we're not appointed to wrath, stop believing we will be. The entire 7 years of the tribulation, I believe, personally, will be very bad. When you look up what a tribulation even is, the literal definition is a time of great suffering. That sounds very bad. Okay. Anyways, I'm going to be done. I'm going to end this here. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. And God bless you guys. Peace. Maranatha.